I can never be what I was meant to be until you are what you were meant to be. It's like we are in this together, and we need each other for these, components of life that isolated have so many negative effects that, in his scenario, we're talking about a very specific people group for a very specific point in time. And, we're still making strides towards that and wish it was sooner and more. When it comes to coffee, the people group who are connected to that and what their livelihood and aspects are of the next generation and the sustainability of that. We shouldn't take this for granted to be able to enjoy what we're enjoying unless we're truly taking that action to make sure that others are fulfilling their purpose and their livelihood.
To the Dr. Pearlman podcast, and I just want to say thank you. No matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, I hope that this podcast provides you with some education, information, or maybe some inspiration in some way, shape, or form. But at the very least, if you get a little bit of a laugh or smile, then to be honest, I feel good about what I'm doing. Everybody, welcome back. This is the Dr. Pearlman podcast. This is going to be episode 7. And actually, this is a DFW Conversations Over Coffee, and it is part 1. We are sitting down with Michael Iwasko, and he is the founder and owner of Elevate Coffee Trading. He has built a specialty coffee brand that truly embodies everything that is about the concepts and the ideas of fair trade, or, community driven, and truly, paying it forward. If you think about, like me, the fact that coffee is such a hot commodity, between the products we buy, whether it's an espresso, Keurig, mocha pot, the list goes on and on. You hear news about farmers being exploited, about maybe not having the most optimal conditions when it comes to raising and harvesting the crops, the preservation of coffee itself before it actually gets to the roaster. I think it's important that we hear from a guy like Michael, who is not only a dear friend of mine, but he seemingly left a life of comfort that we all would have been happy with, to not only start a company built on adventure and hope and love. Every time you buy coffee from Elevate Coffee Trading Company, children that would otherwise go without get nutrition, they get education, and they get clean water. After listening to this podcast, I hope that not only will you continue to enjoy your coffee, but you'll actually see how you can pay it forward. Coffee. Did I do it right?
Close.
Oh, God, I got it close.
Good job.
Iwasko.
Yeah, Iwasko.
Yeah. Our guest today is Michael Michael Iwasko. I almost got it.
Yeah.
Me and my last names are going to be the death of me, Michael. But no, in all honesty, man, thank you for coming on to the podcast. Thank you for being a guest in my home. If anyone hears any nails or odd noises clacking in the background, yes, it is Marlo, who's finally gone to sleep, it looks like here. But today's podcast is a special one, not just because I met Michael at a farmer's market in Richardson, Texas. I don't know, it's like 7 or 8 months ago now, and he left an impression on me because, now that I've introduced him, you're going to hear his story and how he became, Michael, the guy at Elevate Coffee Trading and his company and their mission. It really resonated with me. I really think that in today's time where we're, all trying to be more health conscious, we think of things like organic food, things that nourish the body. We think of, this concept of the idea of fair trade and what it means for, people to be compensated for their time and people getting taken care of within the world of business to have a more sustainable society. And the truth is, this man sitting across from me, who's about to, begin to tell us his story and how he got into what he's doing, he embodies that. And that's why he's here. And we're going to talk about health benefits. We're going to get into some science as well. But Michael, welcome, and tell us about yourself. What do you do now, and how did you become the man that started Elevate Coffee Trading?
Well, thank you for that generous introduction, and thank you for having me here in your home. It's definitely an honor to be here and get to engage with you and your community. Talk about something that I love. Talk about multiple things that I love, and that really is what fueled the journey into starting this kind of social enterprise, this entrepreneurial venture, being able to help out with kids around the world and doing business with a purpose. The whole adage talking about doing what you love never feels like a day of work in your life. Some truth to that, but I was searching for that feeling, that what is that thing that I love that wouldn't necessarily feel like work, that it would feel fun even in the difficult tasks or the minutia of it. And
what were you doing before? Like what was your career prior to embarking on this journey and developing this company?
So most recently, so I left a job in accounting and finance for a commercial real estate group. So we were buying, selling, managing, building self-storage facilities, and so had a small junior partnership in that role, and with our ventures that just kind of took the leap on faith and decided to step out into something that ticked the boxes on purpose and joy and meaningful mission, and developing something that that I could create and that I could really share our life values with. Because there's nothing wrong with real estate, and real estate's great. There's nothing wrong with working an office job. There's nothing wrong with taking care of your family financially. There's nothing wrong with any of the things that I was doing. It just wasn't the full fulfillment, and I struggled with it quite a bit before taking the entrepreneurial leap. I was looking for other fulfillment in other areas, and it wasn't the healthiest thing. And so it kind of fell into coffee in a way. I've been working with a nonprofit for about 10 years that does clean water for children, nutrition programs for kids, helps with their education. And I knew that when I started a business, I wanted to use it as a funding source. I thought I was going to start a business as a love project, kind of side hustle thing, where it wouldn't really matter if I ever earned an income off of it or not, which I'm still not there with Elevate yet, but we're moving in that process. But my mom is from Guatemala, and this is how I got connected to the organization RU for Children. It's the humanitarian organization, the nonprofit.
What is it called?
RU for Children.
RU for Children.
Letter U, number 4, children.
Okay.
All one word. So I grew up Southeast Texas, kind of what I would consider a small town, for a high school, probably 1,200 students in our whole high school. But I grew up with my mom being from Guatemala, learning about the landscape, this kind of neverland imagination of what Guatemala was like, this land of volcanoes and mystic Mayan lakes and temples and Mayan warriors and jaguars and tropical birds. It was just like this place of adventure, this place of imagination that I would go to in my head all the time, and never really started taking trips out there until right out of college. Started visiting our extended family out there. Went with my mom and sister the first time, went with some cousins, and just really getting to know more of the family. And then I was in between jobs, talking about that whole unfulfilling thing. So out of college, so I studied finance, and then out of college worked numerous financial services jobs, a few, independent company jobs. And I was in between a banking job. I was just like, it was driving me, dry. And I was out on vacation, kind of clearing ahead with the family, and saw on Facebook a friend of mine that I went to college with just put a post that said, "Hey, we have a few more trips left to Guatemala if anybody's interested." I was like, "What are you doing in Guatemala? I love Guatemala. It's my heritage. It's my second home. What's going on?" So, we started talking more about it, and they're doing a trip to help displaced families after a just crazy gnarly storm blew through the coast, and just homes were destroyed, flooded, and all that, bringing meals out to displaced homes. And that was my first taste of that side of seeing all of the disparity that exists in Guatemala. So it's like this, in the U.S., middle class economy is like the biggest part of our economy, right? Over there, it's like the smallest part of the economy. The biggest part of the economy is poverty, unfortunately. And then there's, this small, select, really, first class society that exists. And, luckily our family was in, that middle to higher side, that I didn't really see all the disparity firsthand whenever I was visiting, and then going with these organizations, like, this could have, knowing the story and the trajectory that my mother's, siblings and my grandmother were on, as a basically single mom with 9 kids, how she just kind of bootstrapped it and got to the U.S. through a sponsorship with her brother, and then started bringing all the kids along. The trajectory that they were on, had they stayed in Guatemala, I could have easily been one of these kids out there, had they not made that change out here. So there was always this kind of identity that I found in being able to help kids in that scenario that just really didn't have another chance, another opportunity.
So this was a mission trip, and this was with the nonprofit group Are You for Kids?
Yeah, Are You for Children.
Are You for Children. And
so I started working at that time. After that, as a fundraiser, donor, just plugged in, at different levels throughout the next decade. But then knew, hey, I want to start a business, and rather than being dependent on donations, I want to be able to offer people a product that will help take care of people naturally through the regular economic cycle, to where there's not exploitation in creating the product, to be able to have this margin that's gonna do whatever for shareholders and principals and executives, but that we would take and we would share our profits back into the livelihood of the children and the families who are producing it.
And is that what you're talking about? Is that, well, maybe I'm getting there too fast, but is that education, nutrition, clean water?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So half the kids in Guatemala are considered chronically malnourished, and then 1 in 20 die before 5 years old because of the bacteria in the water. There's a ton of exploitation that exists in the coffee industry because it's one of the largest exports of Guatemala. It's one of the largest exports in that whole Central American region is coffee, and outside of the major cities and the mountains, those crops being grown, these are the same people that have these issues of malnutrition and lack of a clean water source, that they're doing a whole bunch of workarounds to try to purify their water, mainly boiling it using open pit fires, wood fire stoves inside of a home type structure, that's creating a lot of carcinogens in the air. They say it's the amount of smoke that women and children inhale from the wood burning fires in their homes that they're using to try to purify the water is like up to smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. It's like the same effect of it. And then whole host of deforestation issues. Over half the natural forests get cut down in the last 50 years to be used mainly for firewood. And so these really economical water filters we help purchase through Are You for Children through every bag of coffee, and we bring them out to the kids, and we get a lot of really, really great stories coming back on how they're getting sick less. Even boiling the water, they're not fully sanitizing it. Mm-hmm. You still got all that sediment in there, and all the issues that go along with that. But so those rural, kind of more impoverished communities don't have the same water treatment facilities or what would you call it, infrastructure. Mm-hmm. To where there's sanitary sewer systems and all that, so everything's running off into the lakes and streams, and then for human consumption, that's not really great whenever there's human waste in it as well. So there's a ton of bacteria, and so it just makes kids sick. Yeah, so a lot of them, 1 in 20 end up dying before they're 5. They don't make it past their 5th birthday, and if they do, the death rate is really high for younger adults because of the lung disease and heart failure from breathing in all the smoke that they're trying to use to boil it.
And just the quality of life in an individual who's been exposed to that is, can't be good. I mean, the things we know about people who've been exposed to radiation and the lingering, lasting effects that creep up on them later in life in their 40s, 50s, 60s are devastating. People who are around, toxic, fumes like what you're referring to, I'm sure it takes a hold of them much earlier even in life and leads to chronic, lung conditions, multi-organ failure, but it's probably at a much slower, more treacherous rate than something, so acute. You go on this mission trip, you learn everything that you've alluded to, you start to see this firsthand. You're still kind of thinking of it as more of a side hustle. You get involved with these organizations. You're getting involved with the people that are actively giving back and making sure that the people that are farming this coffee are getting fairly compensated and focusing on nutrition, clean water, education. The future is the children. Yeah. When do you decide I'm dropping it? Like, what was the date? Like literally you were like, I'm dropping it all. How did it go over with the wife? And like, we're starting this company. This is what I'm doing for a living.
Yeah. So at the time, on the timeline that you're explaining, I didn't choose coffee as our product, or coffee didn't choose me as our product until a little bit later. That kind of 10 years goes by, that I'm thinking, oh man, wouldn't it be nice? And just never feeling like comfortable enough to say like I'm willing to take that risk. Enter marriage, enter a mortgage, then marriage, then a child, and then that's the moment for me where purpose just started like flashing in front of my eyes. That was just like, hey, what are you going to teach this kid? Like, this kid is completely 100% dependent on you and your wife for its values, its worldview, for how it's going to be, what it will consider being a good person, what it will consider like, life in general. And, and I just kind of looked at myself and I said, okay, am I embodying the things that I would want this child to learn by? They say more is caught than taught, right? Like, you got to live it. And so I was just like, can I look her in the eyes and say, follow your dreams, follow your passions, don't be afraid, be brave, be courageous, and all these cool things that, we tell our kids. And I just thought, you know what, I'm playing it a little too safe, and I'm not actually doing those things yet. So before she gets to an age that I need to start like, well, she'll understand that, I need to make sure that I've made every attempt to do it. And so I was actually looking at a few different product types. You've seen the beautiful like handmade fabrics and the wood carved masks and like these really great textiles and things that come out of Guatemala. That I was working on doing some type of import business with that, and found out that my cousin actually at a wedding, one of my cousins married a coffee farmer, a 5th generation coffee farmer. And then that's when we started down the path of, hey, I've had these ideas for starting a brand that would help people and here are the organizations that I already work with that we could potentially bring out to your communities. Here's what they do: clean water, nutrition, helping with education. Are any of those areas of needs in your community, or is it kind of set? And clean water was the first thing. He was like, absolutely. They have running water, majority, not all of them. Have running water, but there's no filtration system in it, and the kids get sick a lot just because their immune systems are so low already. And then we just started weaving this process together. I did a fundraiser where, man, I took all my, I don't want to say dignity, but but I put myself out there. I was the mascot for our.
I was going to say, what were you wearing?
I was the mascot for our high school. Which probably would get a lot more heat, like in the past year or two, since a lot more in social people groups and things like that. Like, so we were the native Indians, so it's the PNG Indians, Port Neches Groves Indians, and they still hold that mascot today. And the reason why they do it, I'm just going to go on this quick little tangent. Okay, I'm coming right back. Okay. So. The reason why I was comfortable with it is because my great-grandmother on my father's side was Cherokee, Native American Cherokee Indian. And our area was known by the Neches River because of the Neches tribe that lived there. And so there's a lot of history, a lot that goes into it of why they chose this mascot. And the actual mascot of the school wears this headdress, this like warpath, with a shield and a spear and all this stuff. And there's a dance they do, the fight song. Mm-hmm. So I went to my class high school page on Facebook and said, hey, I know this sounds crazy, but I still know how to do this dance. And I know how much you guys love your pride in your community in football. And every time that somebody donates enough, every time we hit that, $40 is what it takes to buy one of these water filters, I'll drop what I'm doing. I don't care if I'm in Target or, at the grocery store, taking a shower. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to just, find an open space, and I'm going to do the fight song dance for you guys. And so it, went over well. I was dancing way more than I thought that I was going to. I thought, I'd get like a hit or two off of it.
That's a lot of water filters right there.
Dude, yeah. So we raised like about 11 grand, and took those water filters out to the village. And that was our first thing that we did in coffee, was bringing purpose. So before I ever bought a green coffee bean, before I ever roasted a piece of, an ounce of coffee, we went out, would raise enough to buy the water filters, brought them to the community, got to know them. And then my friend that came with me, and we started just packing our check bags and suitcase full of green unroasted coffee to take across the customs, and then brought it around to a bunch of roasters. So it just incrementally started getting more and more of my interest, my attention, my affection, that my wife saw it, and she saw, hey, you got less drive for work right now and more drive for your, kind of side hustle that's really not going to pay you any. And, she just saw that internal struggle continuing to happen in me, that to some point was like, okay, no, like, I got to figure out how I make this work, because I'm not getting it over here anymore.
And we talked about it a little bit prior to recording. You talked about this, the book you had read that talked about embracing your weirdness and that the world needs it. And like you telling that story, I see it. Yeah. Not as you being weird. Your unique character, your chutzpah to put yourself out there like that. To raise that kind of money, like, look at the effect that you had. Look at what your, I was going to say like originality, like your creativity and your willingness to like inspire and get people interested. And through doing something that was, oh man, I'll definitely pay to see that guy do that. And it raises that kind of money for such an amazing purpose like clean water. And like, that's so admirable. And then you come around to finishing that story, right? It's like, and your wife is like, follow your passion. This is almost like what you need to, am I exaggerating that? Your wife is like, this is what you need to do, Michael.
Yeah, in a very freaked out state. But yes, she was like, look, I married you because I love you, not because of what you can provide for us, And thankfully, she is in a very stable position as a head principal at an elementary school in Dallas ISD. Mm-hmm. And so she's already, and this is the thing, I watched her for, 5 years we've been married, 6 years we've been married at this time, 5 years, mm-hmm. going on 6, and saw how passionate she was for her work, how passionate she was for taking care of, you get a little sentimental here. I'm trying to fight that back. But just how
I have a paper towel if you need it.
Okay. But just how passionate she was about taking care of these kids in this community. It's a Title I school out in Pleasant Grove. Title I meaning, that the economic situation is so dim that every kid gets, free lunch and a bunch of resources mm-hmm. Paid by the state to help take care of them. So that's like their safe space. And that was the crazy thing when COVID happened, is like they were taken away from their safe space. School was actually where they were getting taken care of the most, because parents have to work so much, and a lot of them being like the what they would consider the essential job functions early on, were still having to go to work and nowhere for these kids. But anyway, going back, I just saw her passion, her purpose being fulfilled in her work. And I admired it so much that I wanted to make sure that I got that same fulfillment out of what I was doing. And it got to the point to where it was like, okay, it's easy to say money isn't an issue when you have money, right? Like, oh, who cares? We'll, live on breadcrumbs. It's easy to say from a place of comfort whenever you're earning that money.
That's right.
Letting go of that paycheck was, dude, that month, we booked a trip to Cancun with my parents for Thanksgiving, and it was really hard for me to just like be present and enjoy that trip, because I would like all this anxiety that I didn't even know existed about letting go of the stability of an income just was like hitting me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, thank God I'm here and not sitting in my living room. I was like, I can look out at the beach and just actually like contemplate this. It was crazy, man. Yeah. There was a lot of fear that went into it that people think of. They look at people taking these type of risks, and it's encouraging at the bravery of it, or the strength of character that it takes to do it. But there's so much internally fighting against you at the time that it's not like, oh, because I'm just like such a strong person. It's just like, I'm so compelled that I can't help but do this, mm-hmm. no matter what the fear is that's involved. And so this is like the same type of emotion that would take a father or mother into a burning home to save their child. Was like this feeling that I had. There's just like, this is aligning every piece of purpose and value that I have. Why would I not try this out and see if I can make it work? I can get a job probably again if I really need to. And so, I'm gonna go for it. And so, so that was November of 19 that, got my last paycheck, and, sold out of the partnership interests that I had, and mm-hmm. Put it in savings, and took some of it and said, let's, invest some, and let's go invest it into this.
I guess I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask, was the rest of your family as encouraging and positive about that as your wife, and also coworkers or people you had made relationships with, or were they like, you're crazy?
I could sense the concern, but nobody tried to talk me out of it. Nobody did. Yeah. They're just like, hey, if if you feel confident in it and think it'll, make you happy, we want you to be happy. We don't, because I think it was starting to get obvious that I wasn't fulfilled in what I was doing. And again, no fault of anyone in the scenario. It's not because I didn't have a good job. I've worked with some amazing people, that are still doing amazing things, that are really, really, taking care of their employees and really care about, friendship, not just business, and others, not just business. They're very generous people. They actually donated, I think it was like $1,500 of what I raised, and gave me the time to go do the mission work. And so, there was no hard feelings, and there was no like, oh, I got to get out of this rat race, kind of thing. It was just like, I'm having to give something up that is pretty, like, all I have to do is like go to work and do a good job. And, we're financially going to be doing really well. And so a lot of people looked at that and said, or it seemed like, a lot of people were looking at that and being concerned, because I was like, I just, got a kid now, and, all this stuff, but there were also those that were really encouraging. And, going back, saying the uniqueness, right? The weirdness aspect of it. So the thing that compelled me, so I was like, I got this idea, I want to do this. I want to do this crazy, fight song dance to try to raise some money. And I ran it across some people, even some former mascots. So it's like this huge honor to do this. And it's not like your plush, goofy mascot that's, jumping around and hoo and hawing. Like, it's like this like huge honor. And it's a very kind of exclusive, like, what's the word? Anyway, group of people who were able to do this, because you can only do it your senior year. I reached out to some of them that I'd known and said, hey, what do you think? What if I challenged you to do it with me? Nobody would do it with me. And I was like, yeah, that's cool, kind of corny, but good luck. So I was like,
I keep picturing like the Pacific Island, or like even like that they do in New Zealand with the All Blacks. I just keep picturing those guys like with the hands on the knees and stomping. Is it kind of like that, or it's more unique and like graceful? Or
do or don't go on Facebook and search for it, because I'm sure they're out there. The internet has a very long memory when it comes to this kind
I was going to say,
you could probably find it.
I wonder if we put a link in the description and it would say, anyone who dares click on this, they have to donate $9.
It's not over. It's not over. It's still living. Yeah. But the thing so I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And my wife was like, if you really think, like, if you feel that strong about it, do it. Who cares? People, they're going to watch it. They think you're dumb. They'll move on, and they're not going to think about it anymore. Yeah. And the people that it actually will connect with, you have a chance to, make 2 years of drinking water available to a family for each time. So I was like, oh, okay. So I'm struggling with it. And the thing, I remember it sitting in my living room watching Bohemian Rhapsody is what actually like put me over the edge to where it's like, Freddie Mercury, gone through all his, struggles in life, and there at the end with that it was for AIDS, or what was it? Red.
Well, you're talking about Live Aid,
yeah,
or just the fact that like they got in on that, raising money for charity to perform there,
where he gets the band together for this purpose. He's like, hey, this is not, this is something that if we have an opportunity, we've been given something, we've wasted it for so many years. I've wasted it for so many years, but now I have a chance to actually use it for good, and so I'm going to. And they're just like, okay, dang it. Okay, I got to do this.
and they delivered.
And it inspired.
I not to interrupt, but and Freddie, in my opinion, especially the second track at Live Aid, when he gets up and sings Radio Gaga, the live version of Radio Gaga is, I think the greatest live thing that I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And the crowd's reaction to that. I mean, it's like,
the play on the back and forth. Yeah.
It's incredible.
And seeing that and saying, okay, I'll never have a crowd like that, right? And not that it's anything about the crowd, but the energy that plays off between people who are connected for a purpose, and seeing this like ripple effect wave. It's like something that maybe I didn't even know I cared about. You've enlightened me into this realm of possibility where my life can have a impact on someone else's. And I wanted to find the barrier, or I wanted to find the opportunity that had the least amount of barriers to say, what are you already doing? Are you drinking coffee? Would you like the best possible coffee that you could drink that's also, helping kids? And so I had this vision of something that was, I thought, achievable, attainable. And I said, if there's any, saying to myself, if there's any chance that we can make it work, I owe it to my purpose, creator, people out there that I was created to be an impact on, to be a part of their story. I owe it to myself, to my kids, to my wife, just right, like everybody that I could ever interact with on the road. Let's say, okay, you're in traffic, had a crazy day at work, you're stressed out, now your health's kind of declining, you're physically uncomfortable, hunched over a computer all day, was like, okay. And then I was seeing myself like getting into like these like areas where I could have let a negative experience in traffic like affect my day, like affect my mood. I couldn't get over it. Like, this jerk like could have killed me doing this thing. And then what if somebody does get in an accident? I retaliate, I react, or whatever. Every little snippet of opportunity, connection that you have with somebody could be something for good or something for bad. Right.
Dude, I love where this is going so much, and I actually want to elaborate on it, and then you just pick up right where you left off if you need, because people need to hear this. What you're describing reminds me so much of when Mike Tyson had, I think, was like his latest child. I mean, this is back like 10 years, but like he has, or somebody he's with has a baby, and Mike Tyson goes to the emergency room, and they need medical attention, and like he's like losing himself, he's like raging, he's like, what the F, doctor, get nurse, who's here, who's going to take care, like, come on, me. And then he said he had this like enlightened moment, like he just like started looking around and he sees all these sick people, all these people that are in the same predicament as him. And rather than at that moment thinking, well, I'm really important and I need to, look out for me and my kid, he's like, everyone's doing the best they can. Everybody else has problems. Everybody else is suffering. And it made him think of like, how can I now just be able to be like a part of this and understand that I'm just one of many. Yeah. And we're all suffering. We all have problems. What makes me so important? And here's the thing is, you're so important because you realize that you're just one of many that's really, in the grand scheme of things, like not that important. It's because you know that we can do better. We can shine, right? Like our importance is by helping, making the world, it's a cliche, a better place, a safer, more sustainable place. But I had to say that. I had to talk about that Mike Tyson story. It's a true thing. It was like on a documentary or an interview or something. He talked about it. And what you were talking about, I'm in traffic, like, to get out of my way, asshole. Like, well, what are you doing? Changing your order on the line. I got to get back to work. And we're talking about like, how can I let all that go and not just give back, but like really interact and affect community, city, state, country, world,
I had that moment. I remember it. It was Easter Sunday. Believe it or not, my parents were in town. It was my kid's first Easter. I'm still in my day job, and I'm always a little bit stressed. Whenever you're hosting, right? You want it to go perfect, not because it has nothing to do with your guests. It's just this like thing you want to be able to serve.
Yeah, like today when I was shy using the coffee grinder, I was all like, "Oh, here Michael's talking. Well, let me go."
I thought you were going to talk about. Oh, okay. I thought you were saying using a blade grinder instead of a blade grinder.
We'll get into that.
No, but I had this little road rage moment with my dad trying to go, or actually, I don't know, maybe my wife was still pregnant, and I just had this like, I gotta take care of him, I gotta get you just this agitated state, right? Yeah. And my dad's like, hey, this lady that you're honking at, what if she was sitting next to you in church service a little bit earlier? And I was like, oh, dang it, Dad, I want to be mad. No, but it's like I'm trying to do something good, but then yet I'm creating these negative effects for a bunch of other people along the process of trying to get to my thing. It's like, how do you find that scenario where you're in harmony with all of it, right? Like you're and what you're talking about with Mike Tyson and the whole idea of being one of the bigger picture, right? I think of like an orchestra, right? And you think of an instrument in an orchestra, and that instrument acting out of tune or out of rhythm, out of sync with the others. It might get some attention, but it's not going to make the song more beautiful.
That's right.
And how do you find a way to make the experience for all of us more beautiful through our everyday action, daily exchanging our lives for the purpose that been put in front of us. And so this is the attempt that this is my experiment in it, is elevate coffee trading. And this is what I'm working on doing, and bringing as many people into that community as possible that see the potential there. And that's what I love about our first interaction. I just saw you light up while I was talking about it. And it's funny because at the farmer's market you interact with all kinds of people. And yeah, there was this like lasting effect of, after our conversation, I was like, that guy gets it. Like, he knows what I'm talking about, and I can see it. Like in everything we talked about. It's just like, okay, and here's a little bit more for you to think about. And it's like, whoa, okay, cool, yeah. and so yeah, that's why immediately, like, I felt the connection and being able to work with you and your audience, and how well you do this with people's health. And with a healthy lifestyle, and making sure that you're taking care of your temple, your body, is a major thing that I'm starting now to learn more about, all the benefits in coffee for those purposes. That gives it even more meaning than what I thought of at first. It's just like health and education. It's not just for the coffee producers and their families and their kids. It's also for the people who are consuming it, the people who are enjoying it, drinking it on a daily basis. Why would I want to put a product out there that is not good for people, so that it can be something that I can use to be good for other people? And
it's perfect. So then you just segued into it perfect.
Okay.
So let's talk. Like, for me as a consumer, I have a book. I've watched a few documentaries, read a book back in the day, thought I knew a little bit about coffee. I think I could taste the difference between, an Ethiopian versus a Guatemalan, a roast bean, if you will. I think I can taste the difference between I know I can taste the difference between light and dark, espresso, non-espresso, that kind of stuff. Like, what's with this organic? If somebody says to me, like, I drink organic coffee, or only drink organic coffee, explain to the consumers, to the people that should know, like, what does that even mean? And how can they assure that they're getting A, good quality coffee for the health benefits, which we will talk about, and B, that it's going to the right people, like that, to give back, not just your mission, but missions like yours.
Man, yeah, this could be a really long podcast. We can talk about all that stuff because as you can tell, I like to take side stories and ramble. So buckle up.
And let me tell you, before we buckle up for that organic, coffee, and whether we do the Cliff Notes or whether this thing goes on, I gotta say, man, we could have talked forever about using analogies, whether it's an orchestra or talking about the passion and the vision and putting yourself out there. And that is why, like, I have this. I truly feel, no cliche, man, like, connection with you. Like, for my story coming into chiropractic has its similarities, has its differences, but knowing, like, that moment, that is, hey, can you tense a snap? That moment that took me down that path. But yeah, we could have gone on that forever, but all right.
Okay. Can we stick on for just a little bit? You studied the human body.
Yeah.
You studied biology. You studied I didn't study coffee. You had all of this confidence boosting momentum that you've been preparing for. Yeah. For me, it was business. For me, it was finance. That was the confidence that I had going into it. But the actual, I love coffee. I've always enjoyed coffee. I've always been fascinated by, the coffee science, the coffee preparations, the coffee origins, obviously because of the connection to Guatemala got me interested in that. But as a career, as a, point of study to be prepared to, that was something that I had to start learning and am continuing, and even any coffee professional will say that, but, or any in-tune professional of anything would say that, you're constantly learning and there's always more to learn, hopefully, if they're realistic. But that was a thing that I had to get over to take that leap as well. And so, coffee, so our themes are love, coffee, and adventure. The love component, the mission, the humanitarian work, why, number one, the first thing, that's why I was even looking for a business to start, and then coffee is a platform. It's a community engagement, product. It's something that brings people together, it brings families together, it brings communities together. It's usually served at any type of gatherings, things like that. So coffee for me is like an instrument. It's not the sound waves itself that's creating the change. It's the thing that's producing it to get it out there, right? And the sound waves is the actual love, the thing that you can have this magnetic connection with, right, with your heart and your brain, and whenever that gets out there and that's the thing that stays. Coffee is a wearable, or not a wearable, but a consumable, right? Like it, you're not going to have this bag of coffee forever, right? But the experience that you have with sharing a future and a hope for the people who it's benefiting, that's going to last, and then mixing adventures and active lifestyle into it, and connecting that experience into it so much more that just makes it so those are the three things that I was the most interested in saying, can I actually make a brand of those three things? And it just kind of evolved along the process. So organic, obviously meaning that there are no chemicals, no foreign chemicals, no man-made chemicals that are compounds putting in for either pesticides or fertilizers. Those are the biggest issues. And then there's a lot that has to do with what it comes in contact with that had any inorganic matter. So the idea of a truly 100% organic coffee is extremely hard to find. Every coffee, and let me back up a little bit because I see the concern coming up on your face on it.
No.
So
I'm a stoic, philosophizing over organic coffee. I want to try to continue.
Yeah. So even, and I'm saying that because it may not be 100% of a compost, whole plant-based, or whatever kind of matter that goes into the fertilizer, because everybody's going to use fertilizer of some sort, right? You may need to put a little bit more nitrogen back into the soil, or wherever it may be, depending on where they are. But how that component of the fertilizer is either extracted or derived or produced, that's where you start to get into the okay, is that organic or is that inorganic? And then, so what I say, the truly 100% organic, I'm talking they don't add anything to the soil. There's no bag of fertilizer that, gets sprinkled onto it. It's extremely hard to find. It's just what the compounds are that they're adding into it. But organic certifications is a whole nother story as well, right? How expensive it is for a small lot crop holder, independent farmer to afford the process to go through this stamp that goes on the bag. It's got its benefits. It's mainly a marketing tool. is the biggest thing.
Which-
Because a lot of those, they can't afford those fertilizers that are inorganic in the first place. So it's already organic, right? But then, for them to either invest in this marketing thing, this will make me more marketable because it will make people feel more safe, because there's been this checkbox of things that some third party has come in and said, yes, you check this box, this crop season at least, you check this box, you are certified organic, we'll be back in 6 months, next crop season or whatever, to redo your certification, which is, don't quote me on the timeframes of that, but just giving an example. And so to pay to go through that process, is $30,000-$60,000 in some scenarios. Like, okay, these farmers that are losing a child, 1 in 10 coffee farming families lose a child because of poverty related issues, and you're asking them to invest in this just so that you can decide whether or not you're going to buy that coffee at the grocery store from a quick decision is a big ask for a lot of these farmers. And so, like for ours, the farms that we work with, we don't do certified organic on the label, but we go to these farms, like we know it's family connections or very close importers that work with our roaster that we know that they go through those processes in their own self-regulation.
Quality control is, coming from you and people you trust to oversee that the high standards are being met without having to join some type of almost a bureaucratic type systematic thing to get a label just for the marketing side.
And the same can go on the fair wages side with fair trade. The biggest move in coffee, so the big buzzwords in the last 5 years or so have been about sustainability, the earth, climate change. What are coffee producers doing to make sure that their crop is going to last? That their crop isn't going to die out. There's been this coffee leaf rust thing that's been a major, wiped out a lot of coffee, and then all of your other weather pattern, related issues that have to do with the coffee shortages and then increases. And then, okay, well, is that sustainable or unsustainable? Have they been having to make all these workarounds and inorganic processes to get there? So sustainability has been the big buzzword. And then now more and more in what they're calling, the third wave coffee. I don't know if you ever heard that term before. No. We don't have to go too far into it, but it's basically looking at it from a completely holistic standpoint to say, are people being taken care of? And that's kind of where the fair trade aspect started coming into it. And the biggest thing after, these kind of certifications, came through, have very good intentions, but it's still very difficult because, hey, all the big, well-funded coffee farming institutions or coffee companies can push this down or invest it into the coffee farmers that they're already buying their coffee from, in a scenario where kind of the rich get richer, right? And the poor, lose children. But outside of that came this next buzzword of transparency. Right. And so it's not so much about can these other organizations go in and prove that you're organic or that you're paying the farmers enough. Can you prove it to me as a importer or as a coffee farmer or as a coffee roaster that down the supply stream, down the supply chain, as you would, can you show us the traceability of this coffee and how good it is for us and the people growing it? Mm-hmm. So transparency is a huge thing. And, almost to the point to where it's asking the coffee industry to have this kind of open book, like a nonprofit would. Yeah,
it's like coming in and asking the doctor,
what's your profit margin on this?
Can I see your notes with the patient standing right there and saying, and I have footage.
Yeah. So did you prescribe the?
She says you did.
Yeah.
But anyways,
there's a bunch of examples that you can look on that, and you're saying, okay, like people have started to make claims on, hey, we're farmer friendly, we're eco friendly, we're bird friendly, we're this, we're that, but how far and how directly can you show it? And in that transparency sense has been like the biggest kind of third wave push, to where it's not just about like the roast of the coffee. It's not even about the country where it comes from. Can we get down to the tree that this coffee was picked, or the area of the farm this coffee was picked from?
Tell me if I'm going to make this statement. Tell me if I totally missed the ball, or if I'm following you. Are you saying that the coffee industry, or people within that sector of what we just called it, not crowd control, my God, people within the coffee industry, these I had just said it a minute ago about the quality control.
Yeah.
Quality control are going around with like a transparency standard, or no, it's just a buzzword being used because cat's going to be out of the bag if you're not being transparent, and that's kind of that third wave you're talking about, where there's actually almost as if there's like health inspectors.
No, it's call to action.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a buzzword, call to action.
Gotcha.
Where you're saying, hey, you've done all these certifications to show that you're organic or fair trade. And see, the thing with the fair trade is not, it's a step in the right direction, but it's not fractionally enough, to guarantee, like the minimum fair trade price to buy a pound of coffee from a coffee farmer is, don't quote me again on this, but generally about half of what we'll pay, typically. So a lot of averages that have to go into that, the quality of the coffee and the distance and where it's grown and the amount of it. I mean, there are some coffees you can pay hundreds of dollars, even I've seen thousands of dollars for 1 pound to a specific coffee farmer for whatever reason. Some sultan in wherever sultans come from, it's just wants this coffee. So yeah, there's some crazy numbers out there, but for fair trade, it's like somewhere around like $1.50-ish, maybe a little less, $1.20-ish for a pound of coffee to a coffee farmer. And then if you look at it from the other and the more widely used commercial futures prices on coffee, the C price is what it's called, and that is widely contested in the coffee industry, and people hate the fact that that's even tied to what people will pay a farmer, right? Because what does it matter what Wall Street thinks the future value of coffee will be based on the annual rainfall production in Brazil, that has to do with this Kenyan or Guatemalan coffee that we're buying right now, but we're still, because it's a benchmark and we got to use something. That's, has fluctuated around 80 cents more recently. I think it's over $1 now. Or, it fluctuates around that dollar range, which is just insane, to think of. Like with us, like it's a 12-ounce bag, not even a pound, to pay $15 for, and then for a farmer to get $1 out of it if they're lucky. That's unreal. That's just exploitation at its finest, right there. And so it's like, okay, do more as a coffee drinker to look for those transparency factors to say, what percentage, how are we helping? You're making these claims about education, nutrition, clean water. And to be transparent and honest, we share 25% of our NOI on it. So 25% of our profit, and then right now we're reinvesting the rest of it to try to make sure that people even know we exist. Because we're not paying any salaries or anything off of it. But packaging and shipping is like, you know, the USPS is getting a lot of our that is the most expensive line item on a, you know, coffee that gets delivered to somebody.
Yeah.
You know, so figuring out ways to get into the grocery store and things like that is good, but, you know, then you lose margin to the grocery store, and what are they going to do with that margin? It's like, okay, so there's just all these, you know, players involved that people have to like line up to say, what are we doing, you know, to make sure that we're providing this quality of a product, and nobody's getting screwed along the process.
And truly, like, so you talk about education. I'm getting an education. That's one of the reasons I wanted to have like a long conversation with you about it, because I consume a lot of coffee. Mm-hmm. And I want to see, like, segue my next question is, how can us as the consumers make our best attempt to not just be educated, but understand when we buy coffee, we're doing the right thing? Like, how can we do the right thing buying coffee?
It's a great question. I mean, yeah, I would say buying more than just on the label and, you know, the taste and the you know, the roast level, the convenience factors of it. But yeah, looking into those coffee companies, and there's a ton of them. We're not the only one. This is, you know, there's nothing new under the sun, right? You know, this is not a new concept by any means. It's just something that's very close in my heritage and you know, purpose alignment. But, you know, find those coffee companies that are doing more for the farmers and the children specifically, for the next generation of the sustainability of coffee. There's a lot of coffee companies that, you know, share their profits with other causes, which is great. That's better than nothing. But if people are not able to take care of their children, to create a margin for a product that is going to then take that margin and put it into some other cause makes no sense to me. And I don't see why anybody else would think that makes that much sense, unless they're just more passionate about that cause than like lives in general.
And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the podcast with, you know, not being one, but one of many is we have to remember that somebody picked that off that tree, and you know, we can't just take it for granted. We can't just say like, oh, you know what, this company is reinvesting in, you know, building this whatever infrastructure in school in Southern California, which will create jobs and opportunities. Like, what about the farmer?
Great. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. It's great. You know, that it's helping do something.
Yeah.
And, you know, better that than nothing.
Right.
But why would you, you know, step on these people to be able to do something good for someone else? That same analogy about the, you know, traffic and interacting with others. And so that's like where it all came. I'm looking for a note in here where you talked about, someone handpicked that coffee, right? Hopefully. Yeah. Hopefully. Ours, all handpicked, shade grown, you know, going back to those certifications, you know, they haven't necessarily invested in those certifications, but we know that we've been to these coffee farms, and, you know, we know the importers, know the people working in it. Up to, man, and I can't remember. It's a really interesting number of how many people have interacted with that coffee before it gets into your cup. It was an eye opener for me, and it was somewhere, man, I wanted to say like around like 75 people or something interacted with each coffee bean before it got into your cup. And, you know, we are connected in so many more ways than people realize initially that, you know, that it's like people are dependent on this as an industry, you know, and if we're just looking for the darkest, cheapest thing that will give me energy, you know, then you're definitely not drinking coffee for the right reasons, you know, and if that gets you an introduction into figuring out more about it, then great, it served a purpose, and now let's, you know, take the next step.
I thought of, while we were talking, I wrote down the title of this podcast, and you just tell me if you don't like it, okay?
Okay.
Pay it forward with coffee.
Pay it forward with coffee. Yeah. That's good.
I think I just think it's so fitting.
Yeah. And so our kind of tagline mission is extract hope.
Right.
Which has, you know, coffee, you talk about the extraction methods and how it's brewed. You know, and every time you're brewing a cup of our coffee, you're brewing something that is helping extract hope for for the next generation out there. And so it's like a little tagline that I was working on, is that every ounce of coffee brewed is an extraction of hope, and every time that it's picking you up, elevating your day, it's actually you're actually reaching out and picking others up at the same time. It's actually you're helping elevate other people's lives. Your energy level and the elevation where coffee is grown has a lot to do with the quality of it, the density, the complexity of it. And so it's just like this multi-functional word that just seems so fitting for the brand as well.
Nice. So
organic. That was I told you to buckle up. We're going to take some rabbit trails.
And now, before we move on to like health benefits of coffee, is there anything that I left out, or is there something that I should have said? Is there something we didn't? Do the people need to know something else?
No, I mean, just like you said, how do people make sure that they're buying a coffee that's good for the environment, good for themselves, good for the producers? You just got to kind of just look into the brand and figure out, do a little bit more than just picking something up just because, it's convenient or it's what you're used to. Be skeptical, do a little research.
And it's funny, it's a lot like looking for the right doctor, looking for the right chiropractor, looking for the right dentist. I mean, it's very much so nowadays. You got the internet, and you're going to look at not just the Google reviews. We hope that you look at more than just Google reviews, but to go into each person's website, see their background, education, their principles, philosophy, mission statement. Sometimes you can just kind of pick up like who's full of it, saying a lot of generic things and puts a lot of fluff, or maybe something, really resonates with you. And so based on what you're telling me is, that's, part of the message here is like, guys, really look into it, do the research, really put a lot of thought into before you make that purchase, and, see who we reach out in that web, that sound, that vibration that spreads, right?
What resonates with you? Why? And then will it make what does it help anything, or is it just a whimsical purchase, or is it just something that you're just like, no, I drink this every day and it's got to taste like what I'm used to now. Don't be changing up my coffee. That's that mentality is really hard to get away from. That's a tough one to get away from, but checking through those types of things, and so what you just said made me think of something. We're in a time frame, right, where the appeal of the message oftentimes is more important than the substance of it, than the quality of it, than the outcome of it. And how we've gone from this information age to now a misinformation age, because it's so easy to just put anything out there, and if it sounds good, looks good, is fun or interesting in a way, then it will get more attention than the reality of the situation, and just the distractions in life that exist is just so overwhelming, and that's why I'm just thinking, hey, let's slow down over a cup of coffee that we really know that it's doing something good for people. And hey, if you really want to figure it out, come with us. Come to Guatemala with us. Come camp out on the coffee farm with us. Come hike volcanoes with us. Come, roast marshmallows over lava, and, enjoy these crater lakes of this land of mystery I spoke about before, and meet the people who are, how cool is that, right?
That is cool. I would have forgotten about that.
Yeah.
So you have these trips. How can people take part in that? How can we get involved? How can we do that? Like, what does it cost? Obviously with COVID,
things have changed.
Things
have changed some. We're hoping to get some trips going in 21, but might end up extending out to 22. We'll see what the comfort level is, what the comfort level of my wife is now that we've got a newborn added to our 3-year-old of little lives that depend on us. So we were budgeting about $1,900 to $2,000 a person, including airfare, to get out to Guatemala, do about a 5-day trip, go camp out on the coffee farm, do eco tours, get to meet the people who are benefiting from the coffee that you're drinking every day, the people who are actually picking the coffee that we're drinking every day and taking care of it and meeting our family. And then so we could either camp out. They're actually building some little cabins around the little pond that they've got out there. It's going to be really beautiful whenever that works out. Yeah, and then getting into Antigua, the old Spanish colonial capital of Central America. So much history and diverse culture. I mean, Antigua's cool because you get like this snapshot of all the culture in Guatemala in this. Like, I mean, it's now pretty touristy, but you get an idea, and it's like you can land in Antigua. I mean, you land in Guatemala City, but you get out to Antigua, and you just opens up what all Guatemala has to offer, and then you can just kind of spider web out from there. But we like to do Lake Atitlan, which is a super volcano that imploded and then dotted around the horizon in the lake, this bowl filled, surrounded by volcanoes in this like conical shaped crater lake. It's just amazing. Yeah. And then the volcano hikes and that kind of stuff, and take it easy, do a 2-hour day hike. We do overnight hikes. We can go 13,000 feet up and freeze our noggins off. And,
so we're pitching tents out there? Is that the idea?
Yeah. So you can. So we slept on the side of a volcano.
Okay.
Watching another volcano just erupt throughout the night. Well, I say we slept. We pitched tents out there and tried to sleep. But man, when the ground is rumbling and you're hearing just these explosions, you're like, oh God, what am I doing?
A part of me is picturing the movie Congo, and like the ground like crumbling out from under us, and we have to like run away. But it's not like that, is it?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No, not at all. But yeah, so that's part of that adventure aspect that, hey, we're not just providing a product of coffee. Their experiences, like the 5K that we've got coming up, ways to interact, be active, go be adventurous, go live your life to the fullest extent of it. And here's some coffee to fuel you up along the way, and some motivation knowing that it's doing some good in the world. Yeah. So our mission is to extract hope through love, coffee, and adventures.
Okay. Your mission is to extract hope through love, coffee, and adventures. I always hashtag and say that Paramount Chiropractic Wellness is about truth and love. Yeah. And that's why I hope that everything that got into the podcast today is as much truth as possible, and that the science is exact in my physiology, and nothing I said was misleading from my standpoint. And it's all about love. It's all about paying it forward. Yeah. It's all about giving back, doing the greater good, affecting the lives of everyone around us. Yeah. Not just those that are, you made a great example, and then we'll go out with, you're going to say the last word, but I want to say this again. You mentioned that people will look at a bag of coffee and they look at the roasting date and they're like, this is expired. But you're going to still educate them. You're still going to like kind of give them a little bit of like, hey, this is that, and this is the reason that bag is on that. That's actually the date that it was roasted. It's the fresh batch or whatever, or this came out then. Some people are appreciative of it. Some people aren't. But you still gave them the truth and the opportunity to learn something. And, you touch their lives. And even when they're not appreciative of it, you still, that's your mission.
Yeah. And later on down the road, they may interact with someone who didn't know that either. They get the opportunity to pass the knowledge along, the truth along. It's very, very, very general example of it. But so you mentioned this holistic and community aspect of it, and sharing truth, love, for the benefit of the people that you're interacting with, the people around you. And I guess I'll close out on this one. A quote that I hope I'm not butchering by Martin Luther King Jr. That I can never be what I was meant to be until you are what you were meant to be. It's like we are in this together, and we need each other for these components of life that isolated have so many negative effects that in his scenario, we're talking about a very specific people group for a very specific point in time, and we're still making strides towards that, and wish it was sooner and more. When it comes to coffee, the people group who are connected to that, and what their livelihood and aspects are of the next generation and the sustainability of that. We shouldn't take this for granted to be able to enjoy what we're enjoying unless we're truly taking that action to make sure that others are fulfilling their purpose and their livelihood along the way. And that's what we want to do together. Make sure an equal exchange of value for everyone that interacts with it. Nobody taking more than their fair share of it, and everybody being in that harmonious aspect of love and action.
Yes, sir. Dude, it's been a pleasure having you here in my house. Pleasure chatting with you long form like this in the podcast.
Yes.
I hope to do it again one day, and I hope it's after people either heard this or shared this with everybody. Guys, if you're listening to this, share it with a friend, share it with your mother, share it with your father, share it with thy neighbor. I mean, we got to get the word out. I mean, this is what it's all about, truly making the world a better place through, your, I don't want to say area of expertise, but, doing your part in what it is that you do every day for the right reason.
Yeah.
And they can find you at Elevate Coffee Trading.
So if you're looking at social, at Elevate Coffee Trading, Instagram, Facebook, elevatecoffeetrading.com, the whole long name in every form. Yeah.
Okay.
Elevate Coffee Trading.
Adventure and everything else that we had talked about, guys. I mean, it doesn't just end with a cup of coffee. So, Michael, thank you so much. And everybody that's listening, guys, God bless. And until next time, this is the Dr. Pearlman Podcast.